نعم هسه الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh.
طيب الحمد لله. The night shift returns for episode 3. This is your brother Nafis Abu Zaid, and with me is my co-host
Abu Isa.
Isa Abu Isa. Alhamdulillah, as we have mentioned before, we would like to keep up to our word that we're going to do a part 2, inshallah ta'ala, to the trauma of molestation. We dealt with some things in the first part,
Yeah.
and this time we want to bring some, inshallah, we want to bring some different type of methods. It's not just the cure. I noticed the title say that the cure and the remedy. However, it's not the cure in and of itself, but there are certain things you can do for the perpetrator, the one who is stricken with this disease of molesting others, and also for some things that we can help out with the person who is the victim, the one who has been molested. We can deal with some of that. But before we begin, inshallah ta'ala, as again, we always make the disclaimer that we are not medical experts, all right, and that isn't our field. However, because we make this disclaimer, it does not rule out the fact that experience is one of the best teachers. And the thing about experiences is that no, what you experience and what another person experienced doesn't mean that it is applicable for everyone. And it doesn't mean that your advice is what that other person might need. But what it does mean is that someone can learn from your experience. And that's the thing, because someone who might have experienced something similar to you, might have been victim of what you might have been victim, and you were able to survive it, and you were able to use certain things to help you cope with it, they can pull from that and they can see it. It's normally, and that helps out and it's strengthened because it aids one another in that regard. So it's not to say that you're an expert because you're speaking from experience. All right. That's one of the things I want to say. Another thing is that when it comes to sound information, we are taught that there are information where individual might have degrees because they study a certain field or certain science, okay? And some people excel in those things as far as the academic area. And we want to take nothing away from those particular people who have actually excelled in those fields.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, it doesn't mean that everything that a person have studied or came across is, is ironclad, so to speak, okay? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he did not place this burden of teaching and instructing and helping others on the backs of just an alim, because the hadith is clear. The Prophet said, "Ballighu anni wala ayah." And as the ulama mentioned before, that it's not restricted to the ulama, to the scholars, or to the learned person. However, they mentioned that it should be understood from this hadith is that convey for me what is understood is that the Prophet ﷺ is telling anyone who have heard anything from the Prophet ﷺ, all right, anything that's beneficial, all right, that they obtain, that they understand, that they pass it on. Now, that can happen in two ways. A person can give you the text, verbatim, right? And this is normally what people do that aren't experts or not muhaddithun or etc. And then the people can give you the ma'na of the actual hadith, meaning the sharh of that actual text.
With the application
now,
of things like
fall
that.
under the experts, and that fall under the people who are, are learned in the muhaddithun and so forth.
Exactly.
All right, so we don't want to rule that out. Another thing I want to mention before we get into the day's talk, inshallah, is that we have to really understand what is religious sound knowledge. We're living in a time, as Brother Isa have did a talk, in my defense, water, but we're living in a time where people somehow feel as though that certain people shouldn't speak or certain people should speak, and that's going to be going on. That's going to be going on from time to time. It's been going up and down.
It's going to keep happening.
But now we're living in a time where people make it their sole objective to worry about what another person is actually doing. And that is something that is dangerous and detrimental. All right? It's detrimental from the simple point of it's not about who's speaking or what is being spoken about. It's about whether or not the person who's speaking fear Allah Jalla wa'ala enough to make sure they have sound knowledge about what they're speaking about. All right? And that's the important part. And another important part is when you say that you religiously have sound knowledge, when you deem yourself that, I don't know no one from the ulama that talks like that. They don't speak in that manner because they hope whatever efforts that they putting forth in the dawah is accepted.
Exactly.
And they hope that whatever information they came across is accepted. So religiously sound knowledge is religiously implemented knowledge, is knowledge that is implemented, period.
That's a good point.
You understand? So when a person reach a level of what they call al-bab, as Allah says, men of understanding, those men put in practice what Allah gave them and what he instructed them. So if you reach that manzila, or you reach that level with all of the knowledge or the information that you have, then that's a ni'mah from Allah. If you reach a portion of that, some part of the information you act off, some part you don't.
Exactly.
But you should never allow it to point you to the point that you have some urgent, some self-amazing, or you feel as though you have ribbon to a thing because you religiously sound. No, you're not religiously sound until you religiously practice what you have. That's normally how it goes. And you can look into all of the books of the Salaf and they explain that same point. All right, the fruit of ilm is what? It's action. Now that we got that out the way, we can start talking. All right, this is a serious talk because there is a lot of households. If not, as they said, the statistic might have went up. 1 out of every 5 households, there is somebody's being molested. And molestation and someone being molested has nothing really to do with age. All right, it doesn't mean an adult touch your child. That's a misconception. All right, another adult can molest another adult. Teenagers can molest each other. All right,
a child can
molest another child. Do you understand that? So molestation has got nothing to just do with an adult and a child. I want to get that out the way. All right. Now, the core, because in Islam we have learned to delve back. What is the root issue? What are some of the driving issues for these problems? All right, that occur. All right, we talked about some of that before, but we're going to reiterate some of this so that we can get a bigger picture of what we're dealing with. If you are infested with the disease, all right, then I want to help you understand this disease clearly.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring a statement of a prolific scholar that we all know, Ibn al-Qayyim. You hear me quote him a lot, rahimahullah. And many of the experts in psychology and everything might agree with this statement as well. All right. So you might see it, inshallah.
Oh, let me unlock my phone for you.
There we go.
There we go.
Tell you. So this statement of Ibn al-Qayyim, right? He says that, 1, a person should repel the thought, for if you don't, it will become an idea. All right? So repel the idea. If you don't, it will become a desire. So fight against that desire. So if you don't, it will become a determination and a passion. And if you don't repel that, it will become an action. And if you don't replace it with the opposite, it will become a constant habit. So at that point, it will be difficult for you to change it. Now, there's a lot being said here, and we need to analyze some of the stuff that's here.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that's major contribute to this whole thing of this disease, which locates in the heart, all right, is the thought process. What you think can be harmful, all right? And we're going to get into that a little bit more. It's the thought process.
So we basically saying you are what you eat, you are what you say, you are what you think.
Those things play a major role.
Yeah.
They definitely play a major role. Islam actually tells us about that. When we get, it tells us that. Also, to mention, however, the balance between morality, all right, because we're talking about a moral code being actually violated here. Molestation takes place when the morality, when the moral code is actually has been violated. But what is the moral balance? What is that thing that is a moral balance that make a person understand the distinction between doing right and wrong, distinction between that which is good and with that which is, not harming someone? What repels an individual? What is that moral balance? That moral balance lies in 2 things, as Ibn al-Qayyim explained in his book Al-Hawa, which is known as reason, right, and faith. Reason and iman. All right. The thing that destroys, which is very destructive to that moral balance, will be desires that's unchecked, that's excessive. Al-hawa, and will also be what we call what? It will be anger, excessive anger. These are the two main destructive components to morality. Because a person lose their reason when they are intoxicated by lust. by desires.
Or alcohol, drugs, these types of things.
Or they are angry.
Yep.
These are the two times that the morality is actually gone. But what keeps that moral purpose? Now, when you want to look at a person who is afflicted with a disease of actually allowing their thoughts to progress into ideas, and that idea to go ahead and progress into actual what? Doing an act, as Ibn al-Qayyim was saying. And now in that act, it's like, okay, it's going to become perpetrated, okay? And the person is going to carry it out. Then it becomes a habit. Then that individual, once that thought process happens like that, and it festers in, that disease is developed. So what's going to keep it in check?
Well, when you dwell on things, right? For example, even if it's not something that may be something like what we're talking about, that's an extreme case. But say if you dwell on being a depressive moment, or you dwell on a lot of negative things, that causes depression. So dwelling on negative thoughts becomes reality. You actually can make a whole movie in your mind. So imagine dwelling on harming somebody. So imagine, harming somebody. You're thinking about this whole process in your mind. It actually becomes a movie in your mind. And once it becomes a movie in your mind, you literally will find yourself acting that whole process out physically to somebody. So yeah, the brother's absolutely right. And as we're going to go farther, I don't know if Ibn Qayyim goes in. I'm sure he does. You're going to find out that mental health has a lot to do with your soul. And, your soul is the thing that's really being damaged. And it's the thing that projects your mental health. So.
All right, so when you're exposed to sexuality, you might be exposed to sexuality at a young age, meaning that when we're young, when we're actually young, most of us are being, we become what? We become aware a little bit.
Yeah, we do.
Certain things we become aware of.
We do.
So we become sexually aware at a younger age, all right?
Yeah.
And what we are exposed to, because we're going to experiment. Sometimes you experiment. They're doing it now. Like, my younger kids. Children might meet up with their cousin or something like that, and some crazy stuff go down. We got to discipline them and talk to them. But this is because their minds are inquisitive, and this is the things that they are going to explore. So these sexual exploitations are actually going to happen. All right, but there are certain things you try to do to prevent them.
Exactly.
Now, on top of that, sexuality is what they are exposed to. Okay, what people are exposed to. Okay. And the more you allow those filthy thoughts to fester, all right, and to sit, because you can't help who you might be attractive to, all right? That's a point that you need to understand, because sometimes a person can see their cousin for the first time, all right, and they are stricken.
Yeah, you can. It's a natural thought.
It's a natural attraction.
A natural attraction.
I'm attracted to this individual. I know we're living in a society where we don't date our cousins.
We don't grow up with that.
When I speak right now, I'm speaking truly a truly thing, because it happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
A lot of this stuff happening where cousins are,
it
being molested.
All the time.
Nieces are being molested. Daughters are being molested. It happens. Okay. So when that thought festers into the mind, and you see that person, you're stricken by that person, then you become fixated. All right, because you didn't do certain things, which we're going to talk about, some remedies that you can do to help you repel that thought from even growing into that.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
And this happened even with coworkers. This happened with people that you might be your friend or something like that. You see something, it strikes you, that thought hit. Now you go back, you fester on that thought, you think about it, now that thought becomes what?
Yeah, it comes a situation with people, like, for example, dude meet a girl at the job, right? We all seen them Lifetime movies where the guy liked the girl and he tried to talk to her, she don't like him, but then he follow her home one day. He keeps doing that to the point he breaks in the house. And
so this behavior became because it actually festered into a desire, a desire that became uncontrollable, which he did not fight against. So in turn, it became a determination. It became a determination. So he became determined, or she became determined to actually get the object of their desire. Do you understand this? This is why this is so. You got to understand what you're dealing with here. You're dealing with pure desire. That's what you're dealing with. And when you understand that the core of this is desire, then you have to understand that there are things that you must put in play. And I'm, inshallah ta'ala, going to mention some of those things. So one of the Salaf of the past, they said that qatil hawak, fighting your desire, أشد ممن تقاتل عدوك. They said it is more severe, all right, to fight your desire than to fight your enemy. To fight against your nafs, okay, is more severe than fighting against your enemy. Because with fighting against your nafs, you're going to need certain things. One of those things you're going to need is restraint. And you might not be able to have that restraint if you don't know how to what? Fight over your nafs. So I'm going to mention some verses in the Quran for you guys. And this is all I'm going to deal with before we get into some of the remedies that we can use to help the person who is infested with this disease. Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us a story in the Quran about Adam and Eve. All right. And this is an intricate story, and it plays a direct role into all of this, what we're talking about. Why? Because when Adam and Eve, I asked the brother earlier, when Adam and Eve was deceived by the Iblis, what was the first thing that happened when they bit into the tree?
Became aware.
They became aware. That awareness played a major role. Why? Because what else happened? When they became aware, what did they do?
They started covering themselves up.
Because they was feeling what?
Shame.
But before that, before they had any awareness, before they had any knowledge, there wasn't no shame.
There was no need for it.
There was no need for it, right? But when they became shame, they started to what? Cover themselves up, clothe themselves up, hide themselves from one another, right? From what they've seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Allah Jalla wa Ala, he says something specifically. He says, Ya bani Adam, قَدْ أَنْزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ لِبَاسٍ يُوَارِي سَوْآتِكُمْ وَرِيشًا وَلِبَاسُ تَقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. Al-ayah, right? Allah Jalla wa Ala says, O children of Adam, we have provided for you clothing to cover yourself. All right? Meaning to cover your nakedness and adornment. However, the best clothing is righteousness. And before I get into all of that, I just want to start on the first covering. So the covering of your nakedness is a repellent, if you don't understand what I'm saying. Covering up your private areas, covering up those things which shouldn't be exposed, you understand, is a repellent, is a deterrent. So that what? A person does not go crazy in their desire.
And that's one of the remedies of not falling into it, because when you got these girls, your young girls walking around the house half naked, I don't care if it's our own father. People shouldn't be walking around each other like that. That's a remedy.
And we're not saying this because we're in the 21st century. We're not saying it's the fault of a woman or a female that she has become molested by anybody.
We're not saying.
We're not saying that. All right. So let's remove that. But what we are going to say is what Allah says. Notice Allah Jalla wa Ala says, Ya Nisa and Nabi, O Prophet wives. All right. Speak. What did he say? Speak to them from what?
Behind the screen.
Behind the screen. But not only that, but what else he say? He says, do not have do not have any softness in your speech. Why? Unless in his in whose heart there is a disease.
Yep.
That desire festers. And then that person believes that you actually attracted to them.
You know what's deep?
You're coming on to them.
What's deep is that this was said about people who were better, right? And also, they didn't have porn back then. It wasn't no hip hop music. It wasn't no crazy movies on television. So imagine now with all this saturation, this was said to people back then, companions. This, but what about now with all this stuff being saturated?
That's a good point. We're seeing more worse now than actually then. But still, that the heart festers. And when that festers inside you, you have to use certain things to repel it.
Yeah.
So this story is interesting from the fact that Allah Jalla wa Ala have ordained that we cover ourselves, our nakedness. And it was a blessing and a mercy in that. So that it was repelling us from the desire which Allah Jalla wa Ala have instilled in us, so that we be able to what? Have that. But notice what else he says in the verse. He says, what he says, وَلِبَاسُ تَقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. He says, in the best adornment or the best type of clothing you can wear is taqwa, right? Now, why is Allah Jalla wa Ala telling us about clothing ourselves with righteousness before clothing ourselves physically?
Well, one of the things I got from that is that this mental health or these desires that we're dealing with, whether it's mental health, whether it's desires, it's a spiritual issue, and it's us in its core. And, we have to look at it like that. And I think sometimes we can get confused that depression may not be a spiritual battle, and it is, or dealing with being a molester or being a woman being molested, all these issues. In reality, when he says, the best covering is that of taqwa is a spiritual thing.
Because you need something to balance the morality. You understand? If your moral compass is off, then what you do with your actions, it wouldn't matter. You understand? And you're going to see this a little bit later because I'm not done reading these verses. You're going to see exactly what had transpired. Whenever we don't have nothing to keep us in check, and our thoughts are not clean, and it's not pure, and our bodies are not clean and not pure, and our heart is not clean and not pure, then we're going to gravitate towards that which is impure. And we're going to do or become that which is impure. And we're going to harm others in that wake. Yep. Why? Because we don't have nothing to stabilize that morality. So when Allah Jalla says, when he says, cover yourself with that taqwa, meaning you spiritually, you have to have a strong foundation. Your nakedness needs to be covered physically to repel from desires, but your spiritual essence, your mentality, your soul need to also be covered with that which is right and wrong, which will help you pick the right course, which will protect you.
You know what I get from that verse too? You just kind of like led me to that real quick. How Allah, he mentions that, with covering up, that's a physical thing that you do, right?
Right.
And then he said the best of covering is that of taqwa, right? So to me, from that verse, I get is that it's two types of morality, right? There's the morality we get generally speaking in our society. Like what sometimes when I was growing up, I wasn't a Muslim, but my mother gave us some sort of morality. Right. Like we knew not to steal from somebody, even though we may have done it. We knew stealing wasn't cool.
Right.
We understood murdering somebody wasn't cool. We understood raping a woman wasn't cool. And even though we didn't have a religion, but that was just something that was a general morality issue that was like, that's certain things you just don't do. But now Allah just didn't leave it there. Then he mentioned taqwa because spirituality sharpens your morality. And that's what I got,
Well, you have to hone that in. Because good thing you brought that up because I was going to mention it. Someone might say, well, there's other individuals who have desires and they are able to repel the desires. Not everybody is a molester. Not everybody is a rapist. Not everybody is a sexual deviant. Not everybody is a robber or harm someone.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't have what we said before. When we said that the main two things that would disrupt the moral balance would be what? We said it would be excessive desire and excessive anger. So they don't have some of those things, right? But still, that doesn't mean that morally they are not sound in certain areas, because whatever morality that you find, good thing you mentioned that earlier, because morality actually is tied to fitra. All right. So whatever morality that you find sound within yourself, that this is moral, this is right, and this is wrong, is something that Allah has already put into you innate. As Allah Jalla says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Allah mentioned that. He fashioned the soul in due proportion, and then he inspired the soul what's between right and wrong. All right. So that moral compass you have is basically there. It's already been innate inside everyone. Right. There is not an individual who's going around saying that I didn't know that was incorrect.
Yeah, most people know.
You get a feeling because the Prophet made it clear. How do we know something is evil and something is not? He says because the feeling you get, you want to hide it from the people. How you feel within inside yourself, you feel that.
You only got extreme cases where somebody's so far gone where they don't know. That's extreme.
But it had to. But to get to that point, you have to block it. And there's a way that can be blocked. As you see how Ibn al-Qayyim said, repel the thought so that the thought don't become. And if you don't, it's going to become a desire. And if you don't, it's going to become this. And it's going to become that. Determination is going to become passion. Then if that determination will become action. And then after action, it's going to become a what? A habit.
Yeah,
so what they have did is they blocked it by constantly doing it. A person can touch someone in a sexual way or do something, sexual advances towards somebody, and they can really feel sorry about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I touch my cousin or I touch my niece or I touch and they beating themselves up and they feeling sorry really bad about it, right? And then, that's them there calling themselves that is wrong. But the next time they do it, each time they do it, they weaken that moral.
Well, the black spots come.
Those black spots cover it, and then now it becomes that habit which is uncontrollable and it's hard for them to even fight it off. You know what I'm saying? So these are things we want to look at. So I want to mention something else here in these verses. Allah Jalla wa'ala, he says, O children of Adam, do not let Shaitan deceive you as he has tempted your parents out of paradise and cause their covering to be removed in order to expose their nakedness. Surely he and his soldiers watch you from where you cannot see them. We made the devils allies of those who disbelieve. Now this is powerful. Because sometimes I know a lot of people might say, okay, I'm not Muslim, I'm not a religious guy, I might don't believe in, believe in God in that way. I'm a little bit atheist or so forth and like that. And I know you might want to say that, but in reality, like I was telling Issa earlier on the way coming here, there are things which in this society that we have that was here before us.
Yeah.
And some of those things I was saying is like evil.
Yeah.
Goodness. Man didn't create evil or goodness.
No, they existed before we did.
Do you understand that? Do you understand what I'm saying? What's good, what's right, what's wrong? None of these things was created by man. I don't care what faith you say you profess.
Mm-hmm.
None of them was created by man. Yes, those things can occur because of your actions, as Allah informed us. But Allah never said man was the creator of evil. All right. So the point I'm trying to say is, if we didn't create those things, then one, we can't have an authority on those things. In other words, we can't explain them to how we want them to be. And two, it means that we need whoever created them to explain to us how to combat them. Do you not understand? So if Allah is telling you that Shaitan has deceived our parents, Adam and Eve, right? Tricked them out of what they were already in, their bliss, got them to expose their nakedness. Now they became shameful, right? And then Allah Jalla wa'ala tells you that this was the devil, and the devil is nothing but allies. The devils are nothing but allies to those who are what? Who disbelieve. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you don't hold that connection with your creator, which keeps your morality sane, you're going to be willing to do anything nasty or dirty that it need to be done. Mm-hmm. So molestation would just be on the list. Sexual deviancy will be on the list.
Yeah.
Sexual deviation
murder, whatever,
will be on the list. Robbing will be on the list. All of these different things will be on the list because your allies is the devils. How it became the devils? Because that's what they inspire. Allah Jalla says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqtu. What he says? Ya amanu la taqtu. He said, do not follow the khutuwat. لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان فإن Allah Jalla says, do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. For rather, if you do, he does what? فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر. Indeed, he will what? Command you with nothing but immorality and looseness and craziness and observing, right? So you might say, man, you're talking that spookism stuff. You're talking about there is a devil and there's a sex. No, we're talking about the shadow that you can't contain within yourself.
Yeah.
And you understand why you can't get over the evil that you yourself. You don't think those insinuations come from somewhere?
Yeah.
You looking at your niece in a certain way that you shouldn't be looking at her. And instead of you trying to repel those thoughts, you can't. And you see that she's blossoming or she's coming into a woman or something like that. So you let it festers and then you play with her, your house wash play, and then you're touching her behind. All this crazy sickness stuff, it leads to that.
But the nature of people, just look at the world, right? It doesn't take 2 + 2 = 4 to me, right? So it doesn't take much to figure this out. You go anywhere in the planet, right? I don't care if it's China, India, Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, Africa, the US, whatever place in the world, right? Everybody has their own form of their spirituality. You ever ask yourself, why is that? Because innately, man knows that he needs certain things to defend himself from things he can't see. You know what I mean? And it may not agree with, Islamic principles and some things, and some things it may, it's different. People have different spiritualities, but the reality is that the concepts that people have is for a reason. And you go in any of these societies, they all have stories of demons. They all have stories of wicked things. They all have stories about how to go to different levels of spirituality. They all have stories about good and bad. You know why? Because innately people understand that there are things that's older than they are that they can't defend themselves from, that they need spirituality. So they connect themselves to something.
So it's a disease, was what I'm saying. So when you look at a person who's afflicted with this type of disease, realize what they have. So if it's a disease, then that means it can be a treatment. All right? Then that means it can be a treatment.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So if it can be a treatment, then we have to look at how can we cure that treatment. How can we apply that treatment so that we can actually cure the individual of this disease? All right? And it can happen to any of us, unless those whom Allah protect. All right? That's those whom Allah protects. All right? Like I said, it's not just with a child and adult. It can happen with you having a fix, having what they call an infatuation with someone, infatuation with your coworker, infatuation with a friend, infatuation with this, and it can happen.
I'll give you a story, right, that reached me. It was a crazy story where the sisters were being molested by their brother. And it was happening since they was kids. Since they was like little, 8, 9 years old, he been raping them and stuff since then. And they finally got old enough and they told. It happens.
Because at that time, it was so uncontrollable, his disease that festered inside him, that he wasn't able to repel it. And he didn't care whether or not the moral compass wasn't there. He didn't care whether or not these are my sisters. This is a trust that I have with them, that these are human beings and I cannot harm them.
Mm-hmm.
All he was thinking about is unleashing and feeding that insatiable desire. Do you understand? Because lust is an intoxication. Okay? This is intoxication. Desire is an intoxication, and you have to feed it. Mm-hmm. And if it can be fed, then it can be starved. But then you have to learn how to use the remedies that will starve it. You understand that?
It intoxicates you like alcohol does. It does the same thing.
It takes over.
It takes the reason.
It takes your reason right out of the equation. It takes your reason right out of the equation. Exactly. Yeah. You don't care. You become infatuated as a person. You have to have it.
So how do you stop drinking desires like you stop drinking bourbon? That's how you got to figure this thing out.
Think about it right now. There are people, right, that practice same sex with one another, right?
Yeah.
And to religious people, that that's crazy, it's abhorrent. And to people who are just not religious, they still say, well,
it's not natural,
right? It's not natural. It's not natural. That's from the fictional. We all know it's not natural. Yeah. But what got them to that level? That they started making logical conclusions that they were born this way. And they started making logical conclusions. They were deducing and saying that we are born this way. This is the way that we are. This is how we should be accepted. All of these different things. And they argue these things and they start to believe those things. Allah tells you, pay attention, because I'm not just attacking homosexuals here. I'm telling you the disease, how it removes the faculty of reason.
Yep.
You understand? Look what these people say. Allah Jalla tells you that it goes on to continue. He says, whenever they commit a shameful deed, right? What would they do? They say, we found our forefathers doing it, and Allah has commanded us to do it. Because if our predecessors were doing the same act and they claim they got it from God, then God commanded it and he is happy and pleased that we have done it. This is how their reasons have left them. But Allah Jalla wa'ala made it clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear. He says Allah does not command fahisha. And so that you know, the tafsir of this verse is talking about the time when the Kaaba used to be circumambulated by naked bodies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Quraysh used to go around the Kaaba naked. I mean, anything hanging out. They was just, it was all about free spirit. It was on their joint. And they was trying to say that this is how they found their forefathers doing it. But look how Allah Jalla checked them. In reality, Allah would never command that, which gives us an insight into the creator that we worship. Evil can never expire from him. In other words, you can never think that he will put you on a path to this evil. That's number one. But here I want you to understand this. So they had came up with a lot of reason that this is how it should be. And they have do their rationality out the way, and they started arguing with people. Are this not familiar that people today who practice same-sex marriages is believing that this is morally right?
And will argue with you about
it. And they will argue with you about it.
Yeah.
This is how strong desire is.
You might get sued for saying the wrong thing. Sued, whatever, yeah.
But this is how it is.
Yeah, I mean.
And that's the same thing with other individuals. A person can't get his way. There are multiple things to happen. A rapist, he just have to have the thing, but he get caught up in multiple other stuff. It's not just the rapist. The core of it is the desire, but the rapist also get caught up in what we call control. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Can't control his rage. Yeah. And things like that. All of these different things that plays a component in it. Mm-hmm. But at the root of it,
mommy issues desire. And all these other issues.
At the root of it is still desire.
Exactly.
And this is what we have to learn. We have to learn how to deal with it. So I want to give us some remedies that, for me, the Creator gives us to help us check those things for the person who is afflicted with this disease of wanting to sexually advance towards someone who does not welcome your advancement, whether they be someone that's your relative, whether they be someone that's your friend, whether they be someone from the opposite sex or even the same sex. These things you want to actually try to repel yourself from those things. And some of the remedies that we came up with, we talked about it. The first one being is as Allah says, cover yourself, with taqwa. The best clothing you can wear is taqwa. That's the first thing that you must understand. You must make sure that your moral balance stay intact. Okay, that's the way you want to get a head start.
Yeah, that's the starting line. You know what I mean?
You must understand
that's the starting
what's right is right and what keep wrong is wrong, and understand that those lines can't be blurred. All right, because when you have your morality in check, it will prevent you. This is a deterrent from doing something you know you ain't supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It will prevent you from harming someone that ain't supposed to be harmed. It will prevent you from harming yourself, because just because the molester is harming the person that's being molested, all right, I want you to understand that the perpetrator is also harming themselves in the act of harming that person. Do you understand that? They're harming themselves in a physical sense, and they also harming themselves in a spiritual sense. In the physical sense, they have broken and severed the ties. They have broken the trust of the person that they are molesting. Do you understand that? They have broken the trust.
Yeah.
That trust, that sacred trust, especially when family members do it to one another.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a family member, such as an uncle or such as
It's
father,
a shock. It's a shock.
brother. It's a trust foundation here that's being broke, because the very people that's supposed to make you safe, protected, all right, loved and cherished and respected, they break that foundation when they cross that line.
Yep.
And that connection may never be reconnected.
Yeah.
That connection may never be reconnected.
Yeah.
That it festers into hatred from the person who was victimized by the one who had gave in to the uncontrollable desires. So it don't just harm the person that's being molested, it harms the person that's doing the act.
Yeah, it does.
It harms them.
Yeah.
It makes you a monster.
Yeah, it does.
In someone else's story, in someone else's vision,
Yep.
in someone else's eyes. So later on, you try to rectify your situation, and that person that you have victimized grow up, and they see you, and every time they see you, they think of you as a monster.
Yeah.
Anyone they talk to that person is a monster. That's the one that did this to me. That's the person that did that to me. And that love is never reconnected.
Yeah.
So you see how that harm trampled by giving into the urges of your uncontrollable desire?
Or if a person gets Stockholm syndrome and they fall in love with their oppressor.
That can
happens.
happen as well, because something becomes a habit. They keep happening. These are the things that can happen.
Yep.
You understand? So we really have to understand that we got to use the means to repel the desire. And it's not an easy feat. Go back to what I said before from Salama ibn Dinar. What did he say? He says, fighting your desire is severe than fighting your enemy. It's more severe.
You should renew that fight every day.
But you're gonna have to
renew that fight every day.
But you gotta repel it. So one of the things you can do is by cleansing your thoughts. You have to become morally sound. That's that's the focus point here.
Yeah.
Become morally sound. If you can become morally sound, then you are on your way to helping you fight off and ward off the bad insinuations that's going to come your way. Another remedy that you can use, is another remedy you can use that we brought up is lowering your gaze. Why is this important? What is lowering your gaze? Is it just lowering your gaze from the opposite sex, or it's lowering your gaze from anything that will ignite your desire? Do you understand that? Allah Jalla wa'ala mentioned those things that are that instant attractions, like opposite attractions. Naturally, in the natural order, supposed to be a male and a female.
Love at first sight type situation.
Those things. So Allah Jalla wa'ala says, "Kullil mu'minina, all right, yaghuddu min absarihim wa yahfadhu furujahum." Right?
Yeah.
As Allah Jalla wa'ala says in the Quran, say to the believing men to lower their gaze, all right, and to guard their private parts. This is more pure for them, all right. But lowering the gaze, okay, it's a repellent, it's a deterrent, so that you do not allow your thoughts to fester into desires. Do you understand? So not just lowering your gaze from the opposite sex that you might be attracted to, but lowering the gaze from those things that might influence you. This is something.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure. Say if somebody's been molested or something like that, right? And they have a sexual drive that's been altered, right? They shouldn't be, you should be looking at porn anyway. But I'm just saying, for an example, watching porn, watching movies with naked people in it, or certain types of music that's always talking about the music video with the girl shaking her booty and all that type of stuff. You already have a sexual drive that's been distorted because something happened to you at a young age. Those things, not lowering your gaze to those things, will energize that desire in you.
It will feed it.
Yeah.
It will feed it.
Yeah.
You understand? So you want to repel what you see. And along with Pell, what you see is the brother saying what you hear, like you mentioned. And also, you know, I mean, what you see, what you hear, what you expose yourself to, you want to repel those things to help you deter giving in to, over excessively to your desires.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Another thing that you can do that can help you, and by the way, all of this stuff is from I'm using from the Quran and the Sunnah, is exercise restraint. Now, restraint is a major component here because the best thing that can fight shahawat, desires, is sabr. Do you understand? The best thing that you can use to combat your desires is sabr. All right, it's patience, and not many of us have it. We have some parts we choose to be patient with. Some things we don't. We have to remember that. Fight against your nafs is a daily battle that you're going to do until you enter the grave.
It's a training course, man. You gotta get on that training course.
Some days you're going to win, some days you won't. But when it comes to these type of issues where you're going to harm someone else because of your uncontrollable desire, then you have to fight even more hard.
Yep.
You have to fight harder. Again, because look at the things, the damage that it's going to wreak, the havoc it's going to cause on the people that you harm because you couldn't control yourself.
Well, look at it like this, right? You know how you're camping,
right?
And when you make a fire, like I see now people put bricks or stones around the fire because that protects the rest of the plants and the trees in the forest from the fire. But if you don't do that, if you don't put the fire out and it doesn't have any protection around it, it's possible a wind can come and the fire goes through the whole forest. Before you know, one little fire burnt the whole forest down. It's just like what your desires can do to other people.
Rapidly, and you could have not attended from the ongoing, like, you ain't wake up today and say, you know what, I'm just going to go around sexually touching people, or I'm just going to just take, no, it ain't like that. That thought process happened first.
It may take months for somebody to get the courage up after they think like that.
Yeah, because it already grew to determination.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get to the stage of determination, you at the threshold of acting.
You great white shark at that point, not man.
You ready to act.
Straight up.
And it's crazy because it's the havoc it's going to cause. Another thing you can do is repel your evil thoughts with seeking refuge in the only one who can help you. Now, for those people who are non-believers, and a lot of you psychologists and therapists that are dealing with people who have these type of diseases, you should listen up, and inshallah you can take some advice here. All right. You yourself, man, the creation of man himself is not strong enough to repel, you understand, the insinuations of the shaitan by himself. I'm going to repeat this again, and then I'm going to give you evidence, because I don't talk without evidence. There is nothing that Allah Jalla wa Ala says. God did not instruct us in the Quran that when we get insinuations or whispers from the shaitan, that we use something else to repel it.
Like pills and all that other stuff. Like
he said himself. So if Allah Jalla wa Ala said himself, the shaitan actually insinuates you, inspires you, and influence you, then you have to seek refuge with Allah. This is what he said. Why? Because there's nothing stronger than him that can repel the whispers, and then it goes back to the verse. Look what the shaitan said. He said, I'm going to come to them from the right. I'm going to come to them from the left. I'm going to come to you from your service from here. He didn't say above. I'm going to come to them from behind. And he says what he says. He said, you're going to find most of them unthankful. But what did Allah say afterwards? He says, indeed, you will not have authority over those believing slaves. Over my believing slaves that I have, you will not have no authority over. So if the shaitan is trying to insinuate something into you, where you might say, I don't believe in the devil, I don't believe in God. Okay, so these evil thoughts, you're only going to need something that is strong enough to repel the whispers from the evil thoughts. You're going to need the creator.
You know what's funny though? They actually admit that faith is part of psychological well-being. They actually, inside their books, if you read them, they actually admit that the soul, faith, like for example, like NA meetings, they all say you got to have a personal guide. Or if you go to a psychologist, this one psychologist lady told me, she said most of the things you'll see that help people have to believe in something outside themselves to get better. They even admit that. They may not come out and say it, but they are admitting that.
There you go. I mean, you got to understand that, you got one group, as we were talking before, that might approach it from an atheistic approach. In other words, it's just purely scientific or
Mhm.
just a study or academic study. So this is how we deal with it. So we got to study those things that cause chemical reduction, the
Yeah,
brain
exactly.
balance. So that's
Mhm.
how they might focus on it because they don't want to bring the the
Yeah.
spiritual side into it. And then you have the other side where the people say, no, we want to bring the spiritual side in it, but depending on what faith they profess, you know what I mean, that's what they're going to lean on the most.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But in reality, though, there's nothing stronger. There's nothing out there stronger than faith.
No.
Nothing. Okay. Any group you want to go to for addiction or any type of addiction, they tell you the number one thing that will help you is faith.
Yeah, y'all say that.
I mean, so faith is a strong thing, and that's something that is strongly created to believe in something other than yourself, to believe that there's something other than yourself because you become powerless. So we already know that.
Yeah.
That's there. But you have to repel those thoughts, man. Do you understand? You have to repel those thoughts. And the Creator is so merciful that the Prophet has informed us that Allah said, indeed, and how they could see that I do not bring my servants to count for their thoughts or what they say as long as they don't what?
Act on it. Could you imagine we had accounted for what we thought? Man, we'd be in some trouble.
Boy, gag you out of some money. You talking about kill us 100. You ain't your mind thinking how you going to kill that person 100 ways.
You talking
know what
about trunking boy real quick. You know what I mean? Straight
or
up.
You talking about, taking something from somebody, beating somebody because of your anger and stuff like that, and your reasons go out the door. Imagine the logic of just held you accountable for all that.
Yeah.
All those nasty thoughts. No. So out of his mercy, he doesn't even bring you to account for those thoughts.
But you're rewarded for restraining yourself from the action.
Yep. Exactly. You're rewarded for repelling yourself from those actions. So a person who is afflicted with disease of any sexual deviancy, all right, that will allow him to harm another individual, these are some steps you can do. Clean your mental, clean your spiritual, have a morality, get back in line with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Exactly.
Lower your gaze so those things wouldn't be tempted for you, that will actually fester, starve your lust. Another thing to think about is what? As we mentioned, exercise patience. Another thing we mentioned, repelling the thoughts. And the last thing I wanted to mention here was remember your loved ones and how you would abhor for them to undergo the same harm.
Mm-hmm.
I want to use a hadith for this, okay, so that we can understand a little bit more better. Think about it. If you really start thinking about the person you're victimizing, all right, and you say, well, for example, I got a sister.
Yep.
I got a mother.
Yep.
I got an aunt. I got a cousin. I got a niece. I have a daughter, right? And think about how it would feel if they had to go through the same thing you are putting someone else relative.
Man, that's heavy.
Think about that. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to a man. Abu Umama reported that a young man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, give me permission to commit zina.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the permission to commit zina. The Prophet ﷺ said, come here. All right. He told the man to sit down. He said, would you like that for your mother? The man said, no. He said, would you like that for your sister? And I'm pretty sure you know the rest of the hadith.
Yeah, exactly.
So he mentioned this hadith is actually in the Muslim Ibn Ahmed. He mentioned these things to remind the man, just the way you don't want that to happen to anyone that you love, it should deter you. And it did deter him. It should deter you from doing it to someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I give you a real life example, right? For me, every day, I'm not married. I mean, I don't have a woman in my life that, I can be intimate with, in a legal sense, right? So one of the things that keeps me from running around here fornicating, I'm a person like everybody else. I have desires. I see people that I'm attracted to and things like that. But I always think about my daughters. They're virgins, all of them. And, they don't have boyfriends and things like that. I can't even imagine somebody sleeping with my daughters and not married to them. My mind can't even, every time I think about it, that joint hurt. It ain't even happened. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it keeps me from, doing that to somebody else's daughter. Because I don't care how old she is, that's still somebody else's daughter. And
can you please shut the door? I'm in class. Thank you.
And somebody respecting themselves is not a criteria for me respecting them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to respect a woman. I don't want to take that from her or do that to her. And just because she may be a little loose or, she may be one of them hip hop type chicks or whatever, the loose clothing on, her respect for herself doesn't negate my respect for her. So that's how I look, because I want somebody to respect my daughters the same way I'm going to respect somebody else's.
So you want to think about that. This is the means that can help you fight the disease that you might have. Now I'm going to say the hard truth. The reality is you're going to have to accept this. If you're someone who have been have felt into this and have perpetrated this crime against any of your family members or anyone else family members, and you haven't been caught for it or you haven't been dealt with it, and they threw it under the rug. You know what type of families we come from. We hide stuff, throw things under the rug, and allow it to become a bigger monster than it is. And that's why many ramifications and problems
Fight break out at the cookout.
Exactly, and stuff like that. So if you are one of those people who have not been brought to justice in this dunya, okay, don't mean you're not going to be brought to justice with Allah. But if you're one of those people who have not been brought to justice in this dunya, then I want you to remember this, because that the harsh reality is you may never ever be able to mend those fences. You may never be able to mend those fences.
Nope.
Do you understand that? Because once you have done that, you have crossed a boundary that you're not going to be able to walk back from. Yes, you might be able to live your life. You might be able to do penance. You might be able to feel a little bit good about yourself. But the relationship with that person that you victimized will never be the same.
No.
That relationship would never be the same. And that made me move into my last part of this conversation, and that is the people that have been victimized. One of the things, as we said before in the previous talk, we're going to do it here, we don't have nothing, or nor do we suggest any remedies for you to forget your altercation. That's not what we would ever tell a victim who have been victimized by molestation, to forget the tragedy and anything like that. That's not our job here. That's not what we're trying to tell you. All right, you might not be able to ever forget it anyway. So we're not telling you that. Nor are we telling you to be one who's just all forgiven, in the sense that, forgive everything, this is that. But what we want to do is to bring awareness, okay? And it's a hard pill to swallow here. The person who done this to you, the perpetrator, has become a victim of his own evil. He has become a victim of excessively giving into his own desire. So he has been victimized by way of the insinuation of the shaitan and from his own evil.
In a lot of cases, he was raped or she was raped.
Okay, and I mean, that's some of the things that sprung from that, right? That which will cause the behavior to be acceptable.
Exactly.
All right, and that level I agree with some of the experts with.
Yeah.
That there was a past tragedy in that, and that there, because the action, the pattern, this is what I was taught, this is what happened to me, and you lash out.
There's some logically you can see, some logically you can see. You can see, you can see.
Yeah. But in regards to that, I want you to understand that the victim must understand that if this happened to you, you have to remove the blame, the guilt, okay? Stop internalizing the situation, is my advice to you. Don't internalize it. Don't look at it as if, why it happened to me? Was I so horrible?
Something wrong with me.
Something wrong with me. Is I'm this or I'm that? Do not internalize the situation. Do you understand? Because once you do that, it's going to be like a never-ending story. You're going to break down the defenses you need to keep yourself upright, and that is your self-esteem. You understand?
It causes other mental health issues as well.
It causes a lot of different things.
It does. It causes a lot of mental health issues.
That is your outlook and your perspective on life. So don't internalize it. You came across a situation where someone was uncontrollably in their rage, and they made you a victim of that. All right? And that's what happened. And if Allah allows you to survive it, then you have to work on yourself by telling yourself and informing yourself that, hey, I am not the reason for this individual's behavior, ill behavior towards me. I'm not that reason. So once you get that out your mind, you can understand it.
Yep.
Number two, if any justice that you want, do you understand? If any justice that you seek, sometimes you want to seek some type of justice. Some of us want some mental justice. I mean, some of us want some physical justice, to get done. I mean, it's natural.
About to twist his cat back,
like something happened to him or something. This and that. Instead of you fester the hatred, okay? Because this now becomes another problem of yours. It becomes a disease. It messes you up. It'll mess you up here, and this is true, and it's already happened. It'll mess up your relations that you will have, your romantic relations that you will have in the future.
It does.
It will come in way, and it will mess that up.
It does.
But if you can't fester on the hatred, now, if it was a situation out of your control, what do we say about that? Then one, we leave that in the hands of Allah. If a servant of Allah, whether they was Muslim or non-Muslim, understand something about oppression, because Allah did not.
There's no screen between the oppressed and the oppressed. There's no screen.
That perpetrator will be brought to account. there will be some justice on your behalf that will happen. Take some comfort in that. Take some comfort in the fact that what that person did, and some people can call it karma. We as Muslims, I want to give you advice. We do not believe in karma. We don't believe in karma. All right. Yes, there are some things that are universally.
What goes around comes around. Some things, yeah.
I mean, there are things that, what goes around comes around that have some type of truth to it, but we don't attribute that actual principle to anything other than the Creator himself. All right. So we don't say that, this is the way that the universe have a way of punishing you. Like the universe punished me in this way because I did that. No, that's trying to remove that's an insult to the Creator. No, Allah did that. You know what I mean? We're going to do that. All right. So in terms of that, but notice that what a person put out is what they're going to get back.
Yeah.
And that's true.
It does. It happens.
So this is something that a principle that Allah created, not the universe. Allah created the universe. So this is something that He created. So that is going to encircle that individual. And they're going to feel the pain of that. Take some comfort in that.
Yeah, they are.
Take some comfort in that so that you can move forward in life and you can have a healthy relationship and you can have a healthy living.
Well, I mean, the first thing, if you want justice, true justice, you may never get it. You may never get it from that person, right? Number one, I would say always accept the apology you never got. That's number one. Because justice got to start with you. You got to be just with yourself. And to hold on to that and to let that destroy your family life, your relationships, that's not even being just with you. That's being unjust with yourself and your children, people in your life, your loved ones, where you carry the trauma into every single thing you do. You're being unjust to yourself. You're being unjust to the loved ones, this, that, and the third. We're not saying it's your fault all the way, but I'm just saying that start with justice with yourself first. Because as far as the justice that people who oppressed you, you may never get them. You may never get that justice that you think you want. But at the end of the day, they will pay for their crimes. You know what I'm saying?
You may never get to punish them in the way that
you want to. You may, you know what I'm saying? You may want to break their jaw or whatever, but you might not get that.
Yeah, the justice will be meted out, meaning that Allah will take care of them, but you may never get, like the brother said, you may never get the punishment you think that they should have for what they have done to you.
You got to be in love with yourself. And at the end of the day, you got to be in love with yourself, man. That's it.
And just to add on to that, right? I mean, I hear it a lot. A lot of people say be in love with yourself, be in tune with yourself. There's a beautiful hadith in the Quran, a hadith that comes in the Sunnah that the Prophet mentioned, is that when it comes to doing a deed, he says, "Ittaqullah haythama kunt." Fear Allah wherever you may be. Right? Follow up a good deed with an evil deed that does what? Tamhuha, erase it. And interact with the people in a good manner, right? Something that in the explanations the ulama explained from this hadith is that there are three things you have to take in consideration when you have characterization, when you're having good character. You have to have good character with your Lord, the one who created you. You understand? There's no loving yourself if you don't acknowledge Him. There's no loving yourself if you do not acknowledge that Creator. The one who gave you the soul, who created and placed the light into that soul, who fashioned you. He deserves the haq of loving Him. And you only going to properly love yourself until you love Him. When you don't love Him and you cut that off, you're never going to properly love yourself, because Allah already told you that He says, وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. Whoever transgresses against the set boundaries and limits of Allah has ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ, has oppressed their own soul. Their self is oppressed. So how can you bring justice to your soul if you're going to cut off the creator and maker of your soul? That doesn't work that way. And you hear a lot of people say, love yourself, treat yourself well. That's good. But you got to begin acknowledging the creator. That's how you love yourself, because you're going to acknowledge His role and His function and the purpose that He has for you. Wallahi, most of the problems I see in this world, and I ain't even that old, but most of the problems I see in this world is really because Allah says it's because of our men. It's our own hands. Women, men alike, it's our own hands. We think we know what's best for us when we don't. You don't know what's best for you. You didn't even create yourself. How you figure yourself out? You don't even know everything in your body, the different components of your body. You don't know. You don't know none of that. Your anatomy, you don't even know it. You don't know your spirit. You don't even know your soul. So how do you know what's best for yourself? So loving yourself start with loving the Creator. As the hadith said, having good character with Allah first. What's good character with Allah? The ulama said is tawheed. Singling that creator, that being out. That's that good character having first. That's what you connect first. Then you deal with your soul, your nuts. And how do you be good with your soul? You have character with your soul by keeping it from oppressing itself. How do you keep it from oppressing itself? Transgressing, doing immorality, doing things that will harm it. You understand? Keeping it healthy.
Going outside the boundaries.
Going outside the boundaries. This is how you keep yourself, with it. And last but not least, then interacting with the people good, which also can go for this hype as well, because for the molester, one of the things that is not good character with other people is harming other ones,
no
making them your victims and stuff like that. So as the brother said, again, you might waiting around for apology that might not never come. You know what I mean? You have to remove that from your mind.
Yep.
Okay? Remove that from your mind, because that apology isn't the biggest thing you need. It's not the biggest thing you need. Okay, no. I need this person to apologize. I need this person to acknowledge, because it's really not just the apology; it's the acknowledgement
of what they did.
Mm-hmm. You understand? Because they are still fighting the battle. If they ain't at the level of recognizing their own sins, that means their hearts has been blackened. You understand?
Yeah.
And they ain't done doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they're in the battle. So to get them to stop what they're doing, the moment they're doing it, and say, you know what, I'm really wrong for what I've done to you. But then they turn right back around and do it to somebody else, or turn right back around and try to do it again to you. Yeah. It doesn't work.
You might as well just accept the apology you're never going to get. Just accept it in yourself and then take it from there, because they may never give it. That's it.
And move forward and realize that your life is not linked to their life. Realize that your life is not linked to their life. In other words, you still can live your life. And what happened to you was a tragedy. And how would you prevent that from happening again? What can you do with some of the things?
Something you just said that makes a lot of, you said don't anchor their life to their life. It always brings back to this story. When we talked about when we was on the way over here about the soul and mental health. Yeah. And because what happens is that when you go through traumatic experiences, and I've been through a few, but your souls get anchored to those situations. Your soul gets anchored to it. And once your soul is anchored to that stuff, that's where you be. And if you're there thinking like that, feeling like that, your actions are going to produce that scenario all the time. So the way you talk, the way you act, the way you move, the way you speak is going to be from a hurt person. It's going to be from that traumatic situation, because you're anchored there. So this is why you find people like, why they act like that? Why he can't stay married? Or why this one talks like that? Because they've anchored their soul to those things.
Well, they realizing they're linking together. They're still holding on to that.
Exactly.
In other words, just like love is emotion, hate is emotion too.
Exactly.
So if you stay festered into hate, you're still stuck into where you're actually you won't be able to get into progress. That's why forgiveness plays a role.
It does.
Healing plays a role. And you can't heal without forgiveness. I don't care who you are.
Nope.
If you didn't forgive and you still festering, I think you're still stuck somewhere.
No, you still.
And you're still holding on to something. You have to be able to let that thing go. It's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's never.
It's not easy.
No one telling you to walk down the street with your the person who victimized you hand to hand, and no one telling you to.
But you will be better for it, though.
But you will be better off if you allow yourself to heal.
You will.
You'll be better off if you can move forward. Okay, this is some of the things that we wanted to like.
You'll think different.
You'll think different. On everything, like I said, there are many other things and many other ways or mechanisms that you can use to help cope with this.
Oh, I can throw this out there that I think we mentioned on the way over here. What you eat, excessively eating, and certain things you just need to leave alone. If you have a sexual problem, you have that type of issue where your sex drive is uncontrollable. Because there's a normal sex drive, but then this one is uncontrollable, right? Excessively eating. And things that are aphrodisiacs and stuff like that. If you know you got a sexual overdrive, then you really shouldn't be eating a lot of chocolate, strawberry, other types of food. You can look this stuff up for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Things that add on to that already overly sexual drive.
Well, the problem in this equation the brother's talking about is excessiveness, and we're already warned in the danger of any type of excessiveness. Because that leads to transgressing, and that leads to what? When you become excessive, that leads to things harmful. And that's called moderation. You have to be moderate in everything. You should be moderate in your approach. You should be moderate in the way that you move. I'm not talking about moderate with the times. That's not what I mean. I mean, you should be moderate. You should have a balance, a scale. So if you're going to eat enough that is sufficient for you.
Yep.
You understand? If you overly indulge in eating, And it caused certain things like laziness, like bad health, poor health, like excessive weight, okay, like tiredness, right? Like not being able to restrain yourself with the necessary resistance from your urges, like desire. Okay, you like someone, you know, I mean, she just keep being stuck in your head, or that person just keep being stuck in your head, but you just steady eating.
Yeah, bunch of sugar.
So you don't got nothing helping you to really combat it. So this is why you see why in Islam fasting is prescribed, because fasting starves the nafs. Okay, that's why they mentioned 3 types of fasting. It's not the time for that's not that class for that, but you understand the correlation to this. So when you fast, what you're doing is you're starving the nafs from overindulging. You're purifying your body from those toxicants and things that you don't need.
That go through your bloodstream.
That cause that. And interesting enough, you mentioned that because where did the Prophet say the shaitan actually goes?
Through the blood, through the
blood. I mean, it's amazing, man.
Through the bloodstream.
That we don't really see the connection with all this stuff, but think about it. It's bloodlust.
And I'll be honest with something that
what boils when you're sexually
your blood, and that's why you get, you know, what happens downtown happens because the blood in the veins and all that. But you know, and I'll give you another example where that hadith is definitely real because, like copper, like you know, it's called colloidal copper. When you drink it, it's a blood clean. It cleans your blood, and I've noticed that since I've been doing it for a while. There are things that I used to couldn't control the way certain things that I couldn't do that I can easily do now because the blood is cleaned out. So spirituality and physically taking care of yourself, you got to bring those 2 things together.
Yeah, that plays a major part.
It does play a major part. Because guess what? If you like a girl, listening to Teddy P eating a bunch of sugar ain't gonna help your situation. I mean, it ain't gonna help.
No, I mean, but don't get it twisted. All of us gonna have problems. All of us gonna have nuts deficiencies until we meet our Lord. I mean, all of us gonna have those things.
No doubt.
However, we want to make sure that we don't harm ourselves and we don't harm others. So people who are afflicted with this disease, I sincerely advise you to take on some of these things that can help you deter it from that. If you have not been brought to justice for your act, I severely advise you to stop. Stop by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Stop immediately. You still have hope. We never want to give an individual the idea that there is no hope. This is not from Islam. Never give an individual that they don't have, there is no hope.
But how do you the 99 men? The man that killed 99 men.
Exactly. Now, maybe you don't need to mend fences with the victim. We're not telling you to do that, but you still need to stop the disease altogether.
Yeah.
All right. So you might can get hope in regards to that. And hope in regards to being forgiven. Maybe you might not earn the forgiveness of that person, but you can earn the forgiveness of the Creator by changing the way that bad deed is doing. And the person that's being victimized, please don't let it ruin your life. Don't let it ruin your relationship. Don't let it ruin your mental. Don't let it give you phobias that you don't need. Don't let it make you think that everyone that's looking at you as like an object of desire.
They're trying to get you.
They're trying to get you, or don't allow it to do that, because that's a phobia that you're placing yourself in, and you are hindering yourself from your full potential. And you are blocking yourself. And it's not easy said and done. No, it's not.
It takes work.
It takes a lot of work.
It takes work.
But you have to believe in yourself enough that you can able to take on those things and the steps and the measures to be able to do it. Because I know a lot of sisters and I know a lot of brothers who have suffered from this. Wallahi, man. I know a lot of brothers and sisters, and we all like to polish ourselves up with thobes and garments and fancy words, and you know, I say Tawheed Ak and all this little extra stuff. We like to fancy ourselves up with that Aqidah straight Ak and all that. But we are wicked.
Nah, man, I done seen dudes, man, throwed out with the got knowledge and studied overseas and the stuff that they doing. They're bringing their brokenness to the sisters and be breaking sisters. It'd be real wild.
That's what I'm saying. Wicked
real
wild.
The doors. Real wild.
Wicked.
Man.
Because the heart need to be polished. No matter what information you have, if you're not using it to polish that heart, you can forget it. I don't care what status you reach in the eyes of the people, the heart needs to be polished. So a lot of people need to understand that. These are issues that are real life issues. People are being touched in their homes, man. And there are people who are touching people in their homes, man. You need to fear Allah. But how can you begin to fear Allah? You need to get the necessary knowledge and necessary illness, cure and the treatment that you need so that you can stop destroying lives and relationships and connections that you may have. You have to stop that. These things are going inside the homes, and a lot of people, they come out, they go back and forth, and there's somebody suffering. And not only that, if a person is being touched and they have another family member or say this like a mother who was actually there and they're in a relationship with this guy and they're trying to tell the mother that this guy is doing this to me, and the mother is actually turning a blind eye or making excuses for that, that severed the connection with the mother. So not only now they sever the connection with the actual person that's molesting them, it sever the connection with the mother, and then that actually breaks down.
And then the girl may have kids later and then do the same thing to her children, because this is a cycle, and that joint is like a snowball. It snowballs itself.
Yeah, so if we want to start talking about Quran and Sunnah, we really got to start pulling back the curtain. Okay, you want Quran and Sunnah to work in people's houses, pull back that curtain a little bit. There's nothing wrong with it. You ain't spying on nobody. You're just being the hawk. You got to be truthful with yourself and be truthful with other people. Yeah, we got diseases, man. I got disease. We got disease. We got some sickness inside us. Yep. So we need to deal with it and address it. I don't want to come together and say, okay, let's read the book of Ibn al-Qayyim, or let's read this book, and the next, I'm sorry they come, you saw they come, and then you go home and beat the living mess out of your wife, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what is wrong with you? Smiling in the person's face all day, that's the brother, alhamdulillah. And then just stand there and beat the woman to half to death. Did you get what I'm saying? Duplicity.
No,
that is best.
Yep.
And you're like, well, how can the brother? I know the brother.
And then dudes just tell it to sister to be patient with her eye fat. Like, you just complicit in the whole thing because they doing some of the same stuff. I mean,
and then we wonder why the knowledge is not working to transform the people. Mm-hmm. Oh, it ain't helping out. It ain't working out. Stop turning a blind eye.
Well, one of the things I've learned through my process is that broken people create broken systems. So the system may be the truth, but if broken people are behind pushing it, you'll find that there'll be holes in what they pushing, not in the actual message, but them themselves and how they're pushing it, how they're giving it. Broken people can't help broken people. So it's just bottom line. You gotta have the brothers in the masjid and stuff like that, the imams of one of these communities. We need healthy people, because one thing I've noticed, you look at the messengers, right? And I ain't talking about the craze, the Bible talking about Noah got drunk and all that. I'm talking about the real stories of the messengers. They were like the pinnacle of character.
Well, they were.
They were the pinnacle. That was very important. That was important because broken people can't help other broken people. You got to have a healthy image in front of you. And this is, I'm saying, you see this just every day, like a healthy father. I'm a better father now than I've ever been. So, and I see the benefit of me being a healthy father, because that healthy image in front of people does wonders.
It does. It helps out. So alhamdulillah, stay tuned. We got more stuff coming up, inshallah, that we'll be touching on some other issues. That's because we pulled the curtain back on molestation. Mm-hmm. And man haven't been victim of this ourselves. We have been, yes. As we witnessed, we still want to pull back some more curtains on them drug addictions as well. We're going to get into alcoholism. Yeah, we're going to get into some, domestic violence. We're going to pull back some curtains on a lot of things. This whole show is going to be about pulling back curtains. Yeah. That's all it is. Ain't no more hiding and putting things in a skeleton and wiping it over. No, let's pull it back so that we can all look at ourselves and we can all apply what we have in front of us so that we can become better and we can produce better results. And then if that's happening, inshallah ta'ala, and even if one person, even if ourselves, the talkers, the speakers, realize the evil that we have in us and we can able to contain it and work on it, and then it does.
That's great. Yeah, no doubt. Because at the end of the day, shoot, I've been molested, I've been on drugs, and I've seen my mother get physically abused. So I've seen it. We've seen it.
So whatever we said that was incorrect in this talk, it's definitely from ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt.
Whoever said it from Allah, correct from Allah. I thank you all for tuning in. Alhamdulillah, stay tuned for the next time we're posting the flyer.
Hey man, appreciate y'all listening.
Thank you for coming back to the night shift.
Oh, no doubt, man. I'm always gonna be here for the night shift. I'm an old head now. I'm an old head. You know what I mean? I'm an old head John now. You know what I mean?
Mashallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Sit down.